Welcome to Storytime at the Rubus, a weekly podcast about the Bonnaroo Music and Arts Festival. I'm your host, Charla.
I'm Daniel.
And I'm Evan.
Evan, it's so great to have you on. We got a lot to talk about. Charlotte is actually ducking out. She's taking this week off. Thank you for doing the intro for us, babe.
Of course.
Yeah, she's been really busy. We have had a lot going on with Totem and other things, so I don't blame you for wanting to duck out this week, babe. We'll have you back on next week. But for now, Evan, you literally just got back from Vegas yesterday, right?
I have not even been back for 24 hours yet. I got back
Oh my gosh.
at 1 o'clock in the morning last night.
All right, so we got to do two things. So first of all, you have to introduce yourself to any new listeners, and then you got to tell us a little bit about what was going on in Vegas.
Sure. My name's Evan. I've been going to Bonnaroo since 2012. I've definitely been on the podcast a good number of times now. I live in Jersey City, New Jersey, so if you are around that area, hit me up, and I'll show you around.
He'll give you his full personal address here in just a moment. Just go up to his door. Yeah. That's funny because I remember listening to an old Dead recording where they literally gave out Jerry's address over there on Haight-Ashbury to show up. So that's relative to what we're talking about this week because you literally just came back from the Sphere like less than 24 hours ago. So first of all, how is Vegas? It was ridiculously hot for one thing, I know.
It was hot, but it's dumb and cliche, but it's a dry heat, and it was hotter today here than it was back there.
So what you're saying,
I mean, they had a low of like 110 some days, but you know, we were outside. We were there for 4 days total. We were maybe outside cumulatively for 4 hours, so a lot. At least Vegas is built for that kind of heat.
So what you're saying is it's the humidity that'll get you. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
So wait, you weren't the only one there. I know that they're going to talk about this on the What podcast, but there was a whole Rue contingent there this past weekend, right?
Yeah, we had Brian Stone of the What was there with his buddy. I think his name was Jeremy. And then we actually met up with Dana, who's one of MGZ's friends. And she had some of her friends staying there, Mark and Tom. So we met up with a couple different contingents of Bonnarooians over there.
Mark and Tom, I'm glad that Blink-182 could show up with you. That's fun.
We made that same joke immediately. And I was also there with Maddie Chapp, friend of the show.
Yeah, very good friend of the show. Close personal friend of the show. I'm going to be seeing him this weekend in Atlanta for a Braves game. I saw so many pictures of the two of you that basically looked like the end credits of The Hangover. You guys had a blast. Can you tell us a little bit about what all went down in Vegas? I heard that you got engaged for one thing.
Well, I told him I don't know the day or two before we left that they have at the Taco Bell cantina there, they have wedding on the menu. So I sent him the like the landing page for that. So it was like, we got to go, check this out. And you can actually go into the chapel upstairs and stuff. They have it all set up at all times. So I was like, that'll be because we had all day Sunday to do nothing. So that was a fun little thing that we went out for.
How was that place? Because there's a very similar thing near Broadway in Nashville, and I won't say too much because I wasn't very impressed with the Nashville one.
I mean, I think this one's the OG Cantina one, so it's pretty good. There's a number of cantinas now that they're not as special anymore. So like New York has one in a few different neighborhoods. So probably Nashville's in that court, might be in that category.
Look, I'm not too big on like corporate stuff, but I do feel that like a Taco Bell cantina in the middle of Centeroo would do very well.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So let's get to why you were really there in Vegas. How was the Sphere? How was Dead and Company?
Sure. I'll take you through kind of chronologically a little bit.
Yeah.
So Friday, I woke up early because they have a whole Dead exhibit there. And so I went there to grab like the daily poster, the weekend poster. I got a t-shirt, and then they had like photo exhibits from Jay Blakesberg. They had a bunch of like activations for voter registration and
cool.
Stamps and pins. And they actually had like the new electric VW bus that you could take pictures. There's a bunch of different photo ops. And so I did that in the morning and then hung around for a little bit. Friday, we had tickets in the 400 level, which is basically way up top of the Sphere, which we did kind of strategically we wanted to get two different versions of the experience. As we walked even up to it before we even went outside, we were just shaking our heads in giggly disbelief of like the spectacle of this thing.
Well, wait, let's rewind. What was your first impression when you came in, and then your first impression once they really got going? Because I know for the Dead and Company shows, when you come in, there's this big visualization that makes it look like an old steel hangar or something like that, right?
Yes. So they have kind of a projection of like catwalks and speakers and stuff, and I think 10% of it might be real, but it looks like there's all this background in the sphere, and then all of a sudden they just completely change over to something. So I could talk about the show design.
Yeah.
There's kind of one thing I wanted to say. There's this article by Variety, I think, a couple of weeks ago that came out that described the show design and kind of the thinking behind it. And it turned out that Mayer, who I'm a gigantic fan of, was really the mastermind behind this whole show design. And so if you have any interest in this, I really recommend checking out that article.
It's in Variety, you said?
Variety. Yeah, just look up John Mayer Sphere articles, you'll find it.
Okay.
So it's kind of also major spoiler alert if you're one of those spoiler people, fast forward. But it's designed as a trick. So
they know why people are there. Come on.
Yeah. So they play the first song, and then all of a sudden they open up that catwalk thing, and all of a sudden you are in San Francisco at the Haight-Ashbury location, and from there you zoom out of San Francisco into space, and then from space it goes into all these crazy different iterations of all these different visuals. And long story short, towards the end of the show, kind of the last song, you end up reversing that process, so you end up back in San Francisco again. So the show design is absolutely brilliant, and I think it was really well thought out. And it took many months and iterations of development to get to that point.
So Evan, you mentioned something that I didn't know about when I talked with another Ruvian about the Sphere show about a month or two ago. I learned this after the fact. That space visual stuff that you saw, especially when you're going through like nebulas and stuff, NASA actually worked with them for those. Some of it was like web imagery. Yeah. So you're crossing so many of my check marks with this thing, man.
Yeah, it's just really spectacular. It's a total world-class experience. Even just shout out to like the staff there. They're really friendly. They keep things moving. The concourse is mind-blowing. Like it's spectacular. I even wanted to shout out like the one of the cocktails I got there was like one of the best drinks I've ever had. It came in it came in this like cool shaker glass.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so he's got like a little shaker glass that looks really fancy and Vegas-y. It says Sphere on it.
It was like something I would totally drink in mezcal, like ginger, pineapple, something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just the outside of it, the inside of it, the concourses, just a world-class experience.
How was the show? It had been what, 2 years since seen Dead and Company, right?
Yeah. I've seen almost every tour. I was at their first ever show. I think I've seen them almost every year besides 2023 because I couldn't get out of bed after but yeah, so we were up top for Friday, and so that was on Friday. I think it was a decidedly more dynamic show. So it was a little more, the set list was a little more designed to go with the more moving parts of it. And then Saturday we were down on the floor, and it was a little more static, and we kind of both agreed, me and Maddie were discussing, and it was a little more of a rock show and a little more focus on the music, I think, second.
Did I see that you got Fire on the Mountain one of those nights?
Yes, I believe that was Friday.
I feel like Dead and Company doesn't play that much.
Yeah, it's definitely not something guaranteed you're going to get. I'd say in a 3-night run, I'd give it a 90% chance that you're going to get it at some point.
I was very happy to have got China Cat Sunflower when I saw him in Atlanta last year. I felt like that's my favorite, and I was like, there's no way they'll play it, but yeah.
Let's see what else. I think I hit most of the things I want to say. Oh, so there's also haptic seats. So
How did that work out?
in the drum part, they vibrate according to what Mickey O'Teal and Jay are playing, act like live. So like your seat vibrates as they're hitting the drums, which I think was a surprise to a lot of people because
Did you hear like a wave of like holy shit?
Yeah, because I mean, traditionally the drums and space section is the P break section for a lot of people, and a lot of people were saying for this time, don't skip it this time.
Yeah. So here's my question that I'm always curious about when it comes to these Dead and Company Sphere shows. Does it walk a tightrope of staying improvisational, but also keeping the visuals matched? That's the thing that always fascinates me.
Yes. I don't know how they do it. That's kind of the thing that I walked away with the most, is that it's quite a feat of acrobatics, because they are not really paying, the guys on stage are not really paying attention to the visuals at all.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they're not really reacting to it. So I might suspect that their visual guys are kind of working in sync with them, and they're landing different things as they get to certain checkpoints of songs.
Yeah.
I'm guessing they have like a 1.1x kind of speed up or slow down, something to.
Yeah, that was my guess.
They almost have to.
There was a bit, I think, on CBS News when Fish was playing at the Sphere, and somebody explained something like that. They could speed up or slow down the visuals if they could like kind of tell from the band, like, okay, they're going to go a little longer with this one. They're going to go ahead and bring this one home or whatever. I would assume that's the case with Dead and Company, but like
they almost have to, the way things were perfectly timed.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like the Fish shows, it felt like they had things specific for each song. With the Dead and Company shows, it almost feels like it's this movie that's happening behind them. So there has to be something crazy going on to keep it coherent like that.
Yeah. I'm guessing it's a really big coordination for the visual guys and the guys on stage.
So I got a question for you. Now that you've seen it, what other acts do you think would be good for the Sphere?
Well, we were kind of, after Friday night, me and Maddie were probably discussing this for 3 or 4 hours. There's a really tight lane of bands that have the fan base to travel and the disposable income and kind of the catalog to play a 20-night run and the visuals to justify even like making that expenditure to develop that kind of show. And also the initiative to develop a whole new show. Like Elton John would be a good candidate, but he's on the tail end of his career. He's not going to write a whole new, like develop a whole new show. So that was just one example. And then another thing was like someone like Beyonce, for example. Like they're too magnetic that their whole show is going to be about being close to Beyonce, and it's you have to kind of find that the happy medium where the visuals are still a significant part of the show, and so you kind of have to cede a little bit of ground between the magneticness of the artist. So like maybe like Metallica was probably another good example that we came up with. Radiohead.
The haptic feedback from Metallica would be fun.
Yeah. So we were kind of like, I really want to see what the Sphere's roadmap is, because we could only come up with 4 or 5 artists that could really make it work. So we were like, what are they going to do for the next 5 years of this? Because we could only write out another year and a half, maybe.
Well, no, I thought about this since we had a discussion with another Ruvian a month or 2 ago. And I think one of my top picks would be Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
Because if you remember back in 2013, he had a lot of visuals on the What stage that was really cool. And some of it was kind of like allusions to old Beatles stuff. So, the Dead and Company show that you just saw, it was kind of sort of a movie.
Yes.
Grateful Dead, because it's going to Hyde-Ashbury. It's showing like old clips. You can see little Easter eggs of Jerry in certain places and stuff like that. If you had Paul, he plays like 60% Beatles covers. It would be really cool to do the same thing that you see at the Dead and Company shows, where you see all these different venues displayed digitally. It'd be cool to like be in the Ed Sullivan Theater, for example, stuff like that, or on
Yeah,
top.
that would totally work.
Yeah, exactly. On top of the building, whatever. I would consider shelling out some money to go see that, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Evan, we will get to what happened for you at Rue in just a minute. But when you reintroduced yourself, you kind of forgot one thing. You are the VP of Totem also.
Yes, I am.
Yeah. He's very modest about it. Charlotte and I are going to edit in a little bit here in just a minute to thank all of our Patreons and everything. But I want to thank you because we've been doing so much good work with Totem and everything. I think we're already looking at potentially doing another event in New York early in the year next year, right?
Yep, that's what it's shaping up to look like.
Yeah. So you had a quote in the Totem newsletter that went out today. Shout out to Charlotte. That's one reason she's not on today, because she's a little worn out from working so hard on that. How did it go this year? Like, how did you feel about like all of our scholarship recipients, how everything went?
Yeah. So in my quote, I said it's really hard to believe that all three of them came in not knowing anybody and never coming to Rue before, because they slid right in, and they really brought the energy. Probably it helps that they were, a little younger than the average age of our group. But yeah, they really brought the energy, and they immediately got the Rue vibe. So it immediately clicked, and it was super impressive. And I think they're well on their way to coming next year and being a part of that process.
Yeah, and we're gonna have you with the Totem booth and our big presence down at South Star here in Huntsville here in just almost 2 months.
Yeah, that's coming up quick.
Yeah, I got a lot of places to take you here in Huntsville. You've been here once before, but I got some other spots to take you to.
Yeah, I gotta get a little more time in this time.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to take a quick break. Charlotte and I will be here in a moment to thank our Patreons and have some other Totem news. And I'll be right back with Evan after the break.
So, hey everyone, it is now time to thank our Patreons.
Now, wait a minute. We're going to get to that in a minute, but since I actually have you on the episode for a minute, how have you been doing?
I've been doing really good, just really super busy since I started a new job after Bonnaroo.
Yeah, well, it's kind of sort of a new job. You just moved departments at your university here in Huntsville,
I did.
Yeah, so I know you have been busy. In fact, you were busy today, the 16th, as we're recording this, on getting our Totem newsletter out, right?
Correct. I stayed up last night working on it, and it went out this morning.
Thank you so much for your work on that, babe. So,
of course.
If you are subscribed to that, check your inbox if you haven't already. Charlotte worked hard on that, and we had some quotes from some of our Totem board members about our scholarship recipients and some other things, right?
Right. Got some really cool information about Totem in there. And if you're looking to get more involved with Totem, or if you're looking to get some more information just about Totem in general, we do have a board meeting tomorrow that we are going to stream live on Twitter.
Oh, yeah. We're trying to be open and transparent with these things. So we'll do it, I think, about 7 p.m. Central tomorrow. So that's tomorrow for us, but probably today for you if you're listening to this the day it releases on July 17th. Look on the Totem Twitter account. I refuse to call it X. It's Twitter. Sorry. It'll be on there, and we will stream the whole thing because this is everybody's. We want to be open and transparent about it.
Exactly. This belongs to everyone. And the Twitter account is Totem FND. Correct, Daniel?
Yeah, that's right. It's Totem FND on everything.
Correct.
I just kind of like that for short for Totem Foundation.
So you can just follow along on there and listen live on our board call.
Yeah. I do have a little bit more news about Totem, but before we get to that, you want to list off our Patreon people?
Sure, absolutely. Excuse me. We've got Charmel, Daniel, or as you know him, Jums, Sarah, David and Aurora, String Bean, Taylor, Zach and Jeremy, Amber, Andrea, JB,
Jables,
Sam, Austin, James, Chelsea, aka Hygiene Queen, Ryan, Chris and Shy, Dan, Ernst, Harris, Keith, Casey, Dave, Amanda, Aaron, Nick, Maddie, McFerg, Bruce, Kent, Randy, Eric and Ben, Evan, Jay, Chloe, and Sean.
Oh, and by the way, happy birthday to Chloe, even though that was a few days ago. I just had to get that in because I thought
It was
about
her
it.
birthday, yes.
Yeah, it was her birthday a few days ago. Also, shout out to Celia from Roof Fitness. Yesterday, the 15th, was her birthday also.
Oh, happy birthday.
Yeah, I was seeing some cool stuff for her, too. She's doing well up in Nashville.
That's awesome.
I did have some other Totem news. I got it confirmed in the past couple of days that there will be a Totem booth in the activation area at South Star here in
cool.
Huntsville.
That's cool.
So we have been working with our board. We're going to talk about that on our board call about getting that staffed. I think we're going to do some simple arts and crafts, kind of like we had at the Totem booth behind the Rue bus at Rue this year. Just, little keepsakes so people can remember us, and we'll tell you all about our mission statement. And things are going well. Ask me about it in person when you see me at South Star. Things are going really well right now. I guess that's the best I can say. What can I say?
Well, you can also get more involved with Totem by joining our Totem advisory team, and that is on our Discord.
Yeah, basically, if you talk with us in that Discord channel, you're on the advisory team.
Well, look for the link for our Discord and all of our social media. It's pinned in the bio, so just follow that Discord link and look for the Totem channel.
Yeah, and we'll be talking in there, and we'll be talking on South Star about what is next for us. We have a few slight mods that we want to do to the mentorship program. We'll talk about that in the future, and we'll just expand the scholarship program just a little bit. And because things are going so darn well, I think we can start potentially looking at 2026 as the start of the international program.
Right. The scholarship program went so great this year.
As good as we could have possibly asked.
There's maybe like a couple of tweaks, but it went so good.
Mm-hmm. So again, hang with us on that advisory committee on Discord. Come see us if you're going to be at South Star and sign up for that newsletter. You can find everything at totemfnd.org. And if you want to be a Patreon of the show, 100% of everything goes to the Totem Foundation. It is at patreon.com/Rubus. All right, you want to get back to my talk with Evan?
I do.
All right, let's go. All right, thank you, future Daniel and Charlotte. We're back with Evan. Evan, I know you're still kind of like in the afterglow of it. Did you have any last thoughts about the Sphere show before we move on to Rue?
I mean, my best thing I could say about it is it's a world-class experience. And if you have an artist coming up that you want to see, move heaven and earth to get there, because it's really special. I think the Dead has 2 more weekends in August if you suddenly come into a fancy amount of money. But that's to wrap it up. That's my best recommendation, is make a point to get there. And if you're passing through Vegas, they do have like a daily kind of like IMAX nature show. So you could just show up, and it's a daily thing, and you could just go, and it's kind of like more of a movie experience. So that's one thing that you could potentially make work pretty easily.
I may try to do that because I'm going to be passing through on the way to Burning Man here in about a month or so. So you may have just talked me into it. Yeah. All right, Evan, this is in theory a Bonnaroo show. So I kind of wanted to get to how everything went for you about a month ago. We went on with JB last week about everything that happened for him. I want to hear, like, first off, let's hear like your top shows. What was like the best stuff you saw this year?
I made a little list here. So I went through chronologically. I got Eggy was sick on. I think not a lot of people were talking about them because they were shattered by a couple other things. But Eggy on Thursday, they were spectacular. If you don't know them, they're the best, easiest way I could describe them is kind of a Goose adjacent band. They're quite similar. So check them out. Their set is live on YouTube, or it's on YouTube if you want to check it out. 45 minutes, so you need to pass the time. They have a great up and down dynamic of their band.
Were they
pretty lights?
Squeeze enough in? Was Eggy still able to squeeze enough in just 45 minutes? Because that's
I think they definitely cut a lot of their stuff short, but I think they had like 5 or 6 song set list, which is good enough. Pretty Lights, I think we've covered that topic. Maggie Rogers was incredible. Even though I'm biased, I love her. I think she really got the Rue thing. She even said multiple times that playing Bonnaroo was her dream because her parents didn't let her go when she was 16, and her sister drove out the driveway to Bonnaroo, and so she really stepped in, and she I've seen her 5 or 6 times now. She leaves it out on the court every single time she plays, so she gives 110%. She had there was a lot of conflicts at that time because I think that was Friday night, but she had, I think she said on stage that's the biggest crowd she's ever played to still.
Wow.
So everyone that saw her had really good things to say about it. T-Pain, you could listen to last week's episode for that. Cage the Elephant, they really bring it for every festival set. Matt Schultz is a madman. John Batiste, I don't think a lot of people have talked about him. He's been overshadowed. That man is the personification of honor.
Yes, that's what I was saying. That show was so perfect. It felt like he was done a disservice to be like before the sun went down.
Yeah, I think he if he comes back, he should get another shot at it. Really getting into the Rue thing, because he could do kind of the Chance the Rapper thing, being the mayor of Rue and all that stuff. I think he'd be a really good candidate for that. Parcels, a lot of people talked about them. That was a super funky disco show. I loved that. One thing I like stopped by and had a super awesome time. That was Two Friends. They're kind of just like mashup music, but sometimes that's just what you want. And they were really fun, and they had like crazy production value with fireworks and fire and a UFO on stage and all that stuff.
So I missed that show at Rue, but I had seen them before at an event at Vanderbilt in Nashville. And I'll put it this way: they were the perfect duo for the frat party that really was.
Yeah, but if you have any interest in that, that's pretty much what they are. But it's a lot of guilty pleasures. And then the Fred Again show, which was super unique. And for an EDM style show, I was super impressed with it because it was all live. And like people have said before, he really was in the moment of Rue, especially with that kind of Glastonbury experience that he was comparing it to. So I think he really nailed that. And one thing that Skylar said actually was a lot of people were speculating on him having guests and Skrillex and this and that, but I think he actually got a little more credit and merit for just playing by himself instead of kind of doing the cheap thing and having, a spectacle just of guests. And he really nailed it on his own accord, I think.
I agree. I was almost certain that Fortet was going to show up at some point, and it would have made sense for him to show up at that point where he was on the scissor lift, where it was a little bit more of like a club EDM jam. But you're right. Like, he didn't need it. He was like headlining, so he wasn't doing the thing that they did at Coachella. He didn't need to, So I got 2 follow-up questions for you. Let's go ahead and talk about Fred again first. I think early on, when the lineup was first announced, there was some skepticism about Fred being a headliner. Do you think that he proved himself as a headliner with that show?
Oh, and more. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's now justified to play American festivals headlining pretty much anywhere. I mean, if you already did Coachella like last year, like you could hold your own.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he proved himself pretty quickly with that.
After everything that we saw, I feel like he proved himself because he did so many different things. He was playing piano, he was singing, he was DJing, he was doing so much live. He was doing the one-man band thing, kind of like JB and I talked about last week. Like, there's so much that he's doing in that span of time that he has for the headliner slot. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
I would also guess that people were skeptical because they weren't that familiar with him, which is kind of a natural reaction. So I don't really blame people for that, especially because he's not as big as North America as he is probably in Europe right now.
Rue does a very good thing sometimes where they book an artist that are on the upswing. Like, for example, Zach Bryan was playing a tent 2 or 3 years ago. I mean, now he's playing like giant arenas. I think they were smart, even though he still hasn't completely hit here in the U.S., they were smart to get Fred early before he becomes a big deal in the U.S., because he certainly is in the rest of the world.
Yeah, I mean, he's causing riots in Los Angeles and New Zealand and Australia. So I think he's popular enough to do it.
So I want to run it back with something else that you mentioned as one of your top shows, Cage the Elephant. We were talking on our Discord today. Shout out to Charlotte. You can find that on all the Rubus social media things if you want to hang out with us. Anyway, we were talking there today. Could Cage the Elephant soon be a headliner? Because I personally feel that show that we saw, sure, that was a headlining show. That was amazing with all the pyro and the energy that they brought. But what did you think?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. They've headlined Shaky Knees, and I'm sure they've come close to headlining other festivals. And I mean, they put on a headline quality show. I think just one thing with them is they don't have like a super gigantic, like dedicated fan base. A lot of people are just kind of like, yeah, I like Cage the Elephant kind of thing. So I don't think a lot of people are gonna go super out of their way to go see them. I love them, but that's kind of how I feel. Is like, oh, I'll go to that show if it's at a festival, but I'm not gonna go see him at Madison Square Garden for a night, for example.
Yeah. I feel like they're just one really big hit or a hit album away from being at that point.
That's kind of what I was exactly trying
Yeah.
to express as well.
I think, for example, like Glass Animals, that 2020 album almost got them there. Maybe it even did. Maybe we'll see them next year. Who knows? But I feel like if this album from Cage the Elephant that just came out really hits, maybe that could get them there. I don't know. It's hard to pinpoint these things. It's like catching a falling knife sometimes.
Yeah. I agree with what you said about, I think they're just on the cusp of, and I don't know what they need, but they just need something to get them over that hump a little bit. Musically, I guess.
Yeah. So Evan, let's talk the rest of Rue. I want to talk about other fun things that you saw in Centeroo or fun things out in the camp for you. Like what really made this Rue a memorable one for you? Because we've talked about this. This was a big one and like a really special one for so many of us. I'm curious about anything that made it a special one for you.
Right. Well, I think we really collectively got the camp set up really well done this year, both on a micro and macro level. We had a really great camp vibe. Probably, in our between probably my camp and the Monkey Bar was the heart of it, and I think it was really awesome having such a great collection of people. And we didn't have any real hiccups or anything. I basically have no critiques at all. So I think just nailing that kind of organization, the setup, and the cooperation, and then having such a good setup led us to, we had Hulu live stream from our campsite, and which
if somebody has that recorded, we would love to see it, because like this is the second or third year that Hulu has come to like our group camp, and like we'll sit there with them for like a half hour, an hour, and I don't think any of us have ever actually seen these little mini promos that they make out there at our camp. Have you?
I haven't seen them yet. I asked for it on Reddit, and someone said they might be able to get it to us, but I haven't heard from that.
That one guy, Fancy, that came out, that was like one of the Hulu hosts. They shot this bit at the Monkey Bar where he was interviewing Dave, and they had to do it over like 3 or 4 times. And we kept like chanting at him to chug one of Dave's drinks every time. So they were plastered.
Yeah, he might have had a tough walk back.
But yeah, man, the thing that you're talking about as far as our camp being organized, like that was great for us, obviously, but I feel like that was the case for so many people and so many different things. I talked to Corey like on Wednesday or Thursday at Rue, and I mentioned this last week, and he talked about backstage for them. So much was going perfectly. I know Maddie said the same thing about Squeak Squad, and I heard that from many other group camps and many other places across Outer. Like it was just like the perfect storm of everything going so well for literally everybody. I still have not heard of any major hiccups. Like, have you? Charlotte, have you heard anything on Reddit? No. She said no.
Yeah, I mean, we really struck a chord this year, and I think, getting, this is Spawner's 22nd year.
Yeah.
This is mine and yours, 12th this year.
Over a decade, they all blur out.
We're at the point where we're really fine tuning stuff. So, and now it's a year-round conversation, so we have a lot of time to figure stuff out. So we're probably just getting to the collectively the expert mode, and and also having years of gear and stuff where once you accumulate all the right stuff, you can worry about the much smaller things that make the bigger difference.
Well, to retroactively plug something, this is what we're trying to help people out with Totem. So if somebody comes for the first time, like we've been going for over a decade, we can tell you exactly what to do and what not to do, right?
Exactly.
So
I'll say one thing. I got a carport this year, and
I noticed that. Yeah.
that was awesome. So I got it. It was like less than $300. So it's a bitch to put to carry around, especially because I have a smaller SUV. But it was sturdy as I would go through a hurricane in that one. So if you're looking for a new bigger group setup, look for a carport with some windows on it. I can highly recommend that now.
I think I saw that they had one over at Redderoo. That's where Mitchell was howling at the moon at on Wednesday night. Dude, with that, you're kind of taking it to like Burning Man levels, having something big like that you construct and then deconstruct on site. That's going hardcore.
Yeah, and honestly, it was really easy to put together because we did it in our practice run. We had the whole thing up and down in a half an hour. So,
jeez, it's pretty good.
It's really more of the packaging of it and getting it fit in the car than the setup itself.
So, Evan, was there anything else in Outeroo that you were a big fan of? Was there anything in any of the plazas that stood out to you?
I didn't get to a lot of the plaza stuff I wanted to because the first couple days beat the hell out of me getting the camp set up. So I wanted to go see like Eggy and stuff and make it over to like David Bruce, and I couldn't make it. But luckily we had the Redderoo Beer Exchange right in our backyard, and we had we had the What Podcast guys come over. We gave them a tour. They seemed like that was their biggest goal to accomplish. And then, of course, we had the gigantic Wednesday party, which was a resounding success.
Yeah, I plan on having Maddie and Andrew on at some point in the next month or so to talk about all of that, because I feel like that was the best example of a fan-run event. They just killed it. I mean, we can't say enough good things about that.
Yeah. Maddie said they had close to 4,000 people there by Bonnaroo's count, which is crazy.
Yeah, I would have guessed a little bit more than that from the crowd that we saw while Jason was playing, honestly, because it stretched all the way back to the bus from there.
Yeah.
Like it looked like a tent show with as many people that were there and like all the totems and flags that we saw and everything. You could have told me that that was this or that tent and I would have believed it.
Yeah. So I think we shout out to Maddie and Andrew because they put in a lot of work on that. And I still don't even think they're done with the work on it, but
well, I mean, I think it also shows to Rue, like, hey, even though like Charlotte and I and some of the other people that have supported us, like Redder and stuff, have handed off the keys to this Wednesday event to a new generation, like it's in good hands and they have the expertise to make it happen. And maybe we need a bigger venue out there in the group area next year. It certainly merits it.
Yeah. And we have all the free labor to make it happen.
Well, that's the whole thing for them. Like, you got people putting on a quality event for free. They don't have to do it. They just got to like have one security guy show up or something like that. Pretty easy. But it's a good like give and take because like they trust us to do something like that. You know, it's one of those things we've talked about this before where I just don't think that you see it at many other festivals. Maybe Halloween, maybe Electric Forest, but I think at this point, not to the extent that Rue does it with groups like this.
I'd be surprised if there was any other festival that could have basically the fans and the campers put together a 4,000 person show with a full lineup. We have 6 or 7 different performers there. That's a full day's schedule.
Yeah. And again, I'll talk with them on the podcast before too long, but I'll let them tell the story if they want to, but they got thrown a few curveballs and they still managed everything great. Like I can't brag on them enough.
Yeah, so check out that episode when it comes out.
Yeah, before too long, we'll get them on. Actually, a lot of us are going to a Braves game this weekend, so maybe we'll do a little something going out. I don't know. Shout out to those guys. Well, Evan, thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. We're trying to do a lot of these. We're going to have a lot of people from our group camp and across Bonnaroo do these like kind of mini episodes. Originally, Charlotte and I thought that we might start skipping weeks since we're about to be in the off season, I suppose. But I think we decided we'd rather do these little mini episodes, a half hour or so, just hang out with everybody and see how Rue went. Evan, one last thing. You got any predictions as to who might headline next year? Who do you want to see?
I might already know too much.
Well, okay. Let's skip the first part and go to the second part. Who would you like to see?
I I don't know who's available.
Yeah.
It seems like there's I mean, I was watching that Dua Lipa what was it, Glasto set. I think she would be a good fit. She might have to tone down the production of it because that was basically a Broadway play.
Yeah.
But I think she would be a really good fit. Let's see. Yeah, that's probably my best prediction. I don't really have a lot of guesses because I haven't dedicated a lot of brain power to it because I haven't had enough. So,
Well,
I'm sure we'll have a speculation episode in a couple months.
Yeah, maybe we should do that. That's a good idea. But I will advocate on Skylar's behalf for this Jack White third man record super jam.
Yeah, I mean that would be. I think that's an open invite we've determined. So it's really up to Jack to
look
drive down 24 whenever he wants.
Yeah, exactly. Just tell Jack like, hey, we're going to give you the witch stage. Bring along any of your buddies. You can play all night if you want to.
I try to tell him every day. He never answers his damn phone.
Well, he's fooling around with like some 1940s like electric boogaloo or whatever. I don't know, whatever he's got. Okay, did you go over to Third Man Records while you were in town before Rue?
Oh, that's always the first stop.
Every time I go in there, there's some new gadget that he has to show off or for anybody to play with.
Yeah.
I really like the little thing that he had where you could play with the different pedals. I went in there a couple of months ago. I hadn't seen that one last time I was there. That was fun.
Yeah, they opened up a new room over there to like sample the third band hardware pedals and all that stuff. And they have a recording booth and a listening booth.
Yeah. I also
mean, like Neil Young and Eddie Vedder have recorded in that thing.
Oh yeah.
So,
and it's basically just a phone booth. It's insane.
Yep.
I also love that Jack refuses to move out of that very interesting, to say the least, neighborhood.
I mean, it seems like the neighborhood's coming to him at this point.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, a lot of that stuff is just like 2 blocks away now. It's not just like the shelter. Look, I don't care. I'm going to talk about this because a lot of Nashville locals know this. That place around the corner used to be one of those upside down pineapple kind of places.
Oh, yeah.
COVID killed it off, but the building is still there. That's the kind of neighborhood that is. But yeah, man, I love it. Well, dude, again, thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. I'm so happy for you and Maddie to have had fun at the Sphere. I'm going to rag on him this weekend when I see him in Atlanta, get him to tell me about it and everything.
That sounds awesome.
But anything else you want to plug?
I don't think so. Well, we got Totem. I guess one thing is I do photography as well. So if you go find my Instagram, I can sell you some prints. I got a lot of Bonnaroo prints. And I'll mail you some cool Bonnaroo photos if you want.
Well, you're doing a lot of photography at other shows these days too, right?
Whatever they let me do, usually.
All right, Evan, thank you so much for coming on with us, man. We'll talk to you for too long, and you'll be at my house here in around 2 months for South Star. So we'll get a whole party together and record a little something from here too. I think we're all going to get pretty messed up in my backyard too. I'm just gonna
Sounds awesome.
All right, Evan, we'll talk to you soon. Everybody else, get out there and radiate positivity. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, that's fine. So now